Okay, let's unpack this. We are, oh, quite literally buried in clothes sometimes, aren't we? The scale of textile waste generated globally each year is just absolutely staggering. We're talking around 92 million tons.
92 million. It's hard to even visualize.
Exactly. And a massive driver of that is, the whole model of fast fashion. It's not just an environmental catastrophe, draining resources, pumping out pollution, but it also comes with some really significant human costs, too.
And that immense problem is exactly why the fashion industry, well, it desperately needs to shift towards truly sustainable business models. It's really beyond just a trend now. It feels essential. Today, we're taking a deep dive into how companies are actually trying to do that. We'll be looking specifically at businesses in Poland that identify with the zero waste movement. And we're drawing insights from some pretty fascinating recent research.
Right. So our mission here is to give you a kind of shortcut to understanding the front line of sustainable style. You know, how businesses are finding ways to create value that's not just profitable, but also deeply responsible.
Yeah, and the research we're digging into, it comes from two main places. There's an analysis of nearly 250 Polish zero-waste businesses listed on a directory called mapazerowaste.pl, and also a look at about 21 YouTube videos produced between 2020 and 2022, all promoting sustainable fashion.
Okay, so let's get into the problem first. The source material, it really lays out the case against fast fashion pretty forcefully. It details the massive amounts of water and energy consumed, the pollution from chemicals, and those, pervasive microplastics.
They're everywhere.
Everywhere. And the sheer undeniable mountain of waste ending up in landfills, that 92 million tons stat. It really feels heavy, doesn't it?
It does.
And then add to that the often hidden exploitation of workers, struggling with low wages, unsafe conditions. It's a lot.
It really is. And this creates what the research calls a real organizational paradox for the fashion industry.
Yeah.
It's this fundamental tension between the classic business goal of, maximizing profit and the increasingly critical need to uphold corporate social responsibility, or CSR.
Profit versus purpose, kind of?
Exactly. And the aim of what are called sustainable business models, or SBMs, is to try and synthesize these two things, to make sustainability not just an add-on, but the core value proposition.
And you really grasp the scale of this paradox and I guess the challenge these sustainable businesses face when you look at what happens to clothes after we're done with them. Globally, only about 20% of discarded textiles even get collected for any kind of processing.
Only 20%?
Yeah, and here's the truly shocking figure. A tiny, tiny 1% of clothing is actually recycled back into new garments, just 1%.
Wow. 1%. That's minuscule.
It makes that goal of keeping clothes out of landfills and, actually in use incredibly urgent.
Absolutely. So, okay, how are businesses in the zero waste space actually tackling this? The study looking at those 249 Polish companies, it identified 10 distinct ways they're creating sustainable value, 10 different value propositions.
Okay, 10. And when you look at the list, do any stand out?
Oh, yeah. Two categories really dominate. By far the most popular are secondhand clothing shops. There were 120 companies just focused on resale.
Right, that makes total sense. Giving clothes a second life is such a direct way to reduce waste. What was the second?
The next most common were cobbler and leather repair services, with 55 companies dedicated to fixing and maintaining footwear and leather goods, keeping things we already own going.
Okay, so selling used and fixing old. What else did they find?
Beyond those top two, the researchers found quite a range of other approaches. There were traditional tailoring services, of course, then shoe and leather goods renovation, which is maybe a bit more intensive than standard repair, like making it look new again.
Okay.
Also, textile upcycling, where old materials are transformed into something completely new. Reusable cloth diaper rentals, which is interesting. Consignment stores, which are another form of secondhand, really. Sewing courses, teaching people skills.
Empowering people to do it themselves.
Exactly. And even a couple of costume rental places.
It's fascinating to see that mix. Some are clearly these, age-old crafts getting a renewed focus because of sustainability tailoring, shoemaking, classic secondhand shops. And then you have the newer, more explicitly circular economy approaches like textile upcycling, shoe renovation, and those rental models, especially the reusable diaper one.
Yeah, and what was interesting was an observation about those traditional services, like tailoring. The study found they often had a pretty limited online presence. Sometimes it was just a phone number listed on that directory.
Really? Just a phone number?
Yeah. It suggests that maybe a lack of digital skills, or perhaps just the resources for online marketing, might be holding some of these smaller independent businesses back from reaching more customers online.
That really does seem like a missed opportunity, doesn't it? Especially because services like shoe and leather renovation, they seem to be tapping into a real consumer desire right now. People seem to be looking for unique, individualized products, kind of pushing back against the uniformity of fast fashion. Being able to get a beloved item renovated or customized, it feels like a direct response to that whole disposable culture.
I agree. And on the flip side, that traditional clothing rental market still seems very, very niche. This study only found 2 costume rental companies.
Only 2.
Yeah, so maybe consumer acceptance for renting everyday clothes just isn't quite there yet in Poland. Or maybe it's just hard to make the business model work. But the reusable cloth diaper rental model, like that network they mentioned called Piluchateka, that represents a really novel approach to rental that does seem to be finding a market.
Probably driven by a very specific need and, conscious parenting choices.
That would be my guess.
It totally tracks why secondhand businesses are so popular, though. I mean, they directly meet consumer demand for more affordable options.
Right.
While also utilizing the huge supply of used clothing that already exists.
Yeah.
It's probably the most straightforward way to keep clothes in circulation.
It is. And the repair sector, while maybe not as numerous as secondhand overall in terms of companies listed, it actually shows the most diversity in how it operates. You've got tailoring, shoemaking, renovation, upcycling, even teaching skills through sewing courses.
So lots of different angles within repair.
Exactly. And this range of offerings, combined perhaps with the presence of repair networks, might be helping this sector function relatively well in Poland, maybe better than in some other countries where barriers have been reported.
Networks. That's interesting. Did the study look much into that, like whether these were just standalone shops or part of something bigger?
Yes, they did. They looked specifically at whether these businesses operated independently or as part of larger networks, which, as you say, can really influence visibility and growth.
Okay, and did they find examples?
They did. For secondhand clothing, you see names like Medi Profit and Textilowo mentioned as networks. In the repair space, particularly for shoes and leatherwork, Mr. Minute is a prominent network.
Yeah.
You often see them in shopping malls, right?
Yeah, the little kiosks.
Exactly. And they sometimes offer other services too, like key cutting or watch battery replacement. And as we mentioned, Piluchateka is the network coordinating the reusable diaper rental.
Right, so networks exist across these different types.
Yes, and what's really striking is that the network-affiliated repair businesses, like those under the Mr. Minute umbrella, they significantly outnumber the independent repair businesses found online in this study.
Ah, so being part of a network makes you more visible online.
It strongly suggests that. Being part of a network, which often comes with a better online presence, maybe shared marketing, seemed to be a key factor for growth and visibility, especially for repair services. The data even confirmed it statistically. There's a clear relationship between the type of business, secondhand repair, etc., and whether it operates within a network.
Okay.
So it really underlines the point. Networking seems to be a significant accelerator for growth, particularly for secondhand businesses and those in the shoemaking and leather repair fields.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's shift gears a bit now. What about how the message of sustainable fashion is being spread? You mentioned the YouTube video analysis.
Right. So looking at those 21 videos, broadly speaking, the promotional efforts focus on building awareness in 2 main ways. First, really hammering home the negative environmental and human consequences of fast fashion.
Making the problem clear.
Exactly. And second, teaching viewers about concrete, sustainable behaviors they can actually adopt. Practical steps.
And did the videos get specific about the problems? What kind of criticisms came up?
They really pulled back the curtain. They detailed the huge carbon and water footprint of clothing production, the use of harmful chemicals, serious labor issues, and the sheer volume of waste, including that worrying statistic I saw mentioned of around 13 kilograms of textile waste generated per person globally each year.
13 kilos per person. Yeah. They also call out practices like destroying perfectly good unsold garments, the excessive packaging in e-commerce, and the often deliberate low quality coupled with massive markups, sometimes 500, 800%, that really define fast fashion.
It paints a pretty grim picture of the status quo.
It does.
But it's not all doom and gloom in the videos. They also highlight the encouraging transformation that is happening within the fashion industry. They talk about efforts to actually define and measure what sustainable fashion means, using tools and initiatives like industry rankings, certifications, or things like the digital product passport, which is basically a digital tag that could track a garment's entire journey and impact, offering much-needed transparency.
That sounds potentially revolutionary, that passport idea.
It could be. The videos also discuss the role larger brands are starting to play, maybe promoting more sustainable materials or nudging consumers towards behaviors like reselling or buying pre-owned items.
So putting some of their marketing muscle behind it.
Exactly. It really reinforces that idea that consumers do have power, that voting with your wallet can genuinely push brands towards better practices.
Okay, and what about technology? Was that part of the discussion in these videos?
Oh, definitely. Technology is a big part of the picture. When it comes to recycling textiles, the focus currently is often on what's called downcycling.
Downcycling meaning?
Meaning turning old cotton into, say, rags or using mixed textiles for things like insulation fill. It's useful, but it's not creating new clothes from old clothes, generally.
Right.
The big challenges are handling fabrics made of mixed fibers like cotton polyester blends and just getting people to separate textile waste properly in the first place.
So infrastructure and behavior challenges.
Exactly. Upcycling, taking old items and creatively making something new and often higher value that's presented as more of an art form right now. Though some videos did explore whether certain items, like maybe transforming old shirts or workwear, could potentially be upcycled on a larger scale.
Interesting. What about digital tech besides the passport?
Digital tech is also seen as promising. We mentioned the digital product passport for transparency, but also things like virtual clothing and virtual fitting rooms to try and reduce returns, which are a huge source of waste in e-commerce.
Yes. The return problem.
And then tools like AI and ERP systems, that's enterprise resource planning, basically business management software, are helping companies track their environmental footprint and manage supply chains more sustainably.
So using data to make better decisions.
Precisely. Then there's technology at the production level itself. Things like eco-design and bio-design, really thinking about minimizing waste right from the very start of designing a garment.
Designing for sustainability.
Yes. And they mentioned exciting new materials, some derived from food waste, like fabrics made from apples, grapes, or pineapple leaves.
Pineapple leaves.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Apparently. And other innovative natural fibers like tencel, which comes from wood pulp, or cupro from cotton waste, also improving traditional ones like hemp and bamboo.
Right.
They even talked about using the food industry for developing sustainable dyes. And automation in manufacturing using lasers or 3D weaving, which can make tasks safer for workers and potentially add transparency to the process.
Wow, there's a lot happening on the tech front.
There really is. And the videos didn't stop at just industry efforts. They also touched on the crucial need for government regulation. They argued that we need policies to really shift us from our current linear take-make-dispose model to a truly circular economy.
Makes sense. What kind of policies?
Things like requirements for brands to design products for easier disassembly or recycling, setting up better systems for selective collection of textile waste, also boosting the market for recycled products, making them more competitive, and supporting those vital post-sale services like repair and customization.
So creating the right environment for these sustainable businesses to thrive.
Exactly. And bringing it back to us, the consumer, the videos also provide quite actionable advice.
Like what? Well, things like just buying less overall and being more conscious about what you do buy. Building a minimalist capsule wardrobe was mentioned. And actively using secondhand options, whether that's buying, selling, or even renting clothes, though we know rental is still niche. They even touch on reusable packaging solutions for online orders.
Okay, practical tips.
Yeah. And finally, the videos paint a picture of what makes a brand sustainable. What characteristics do they highlight?
They often describe them as being local, focused on high quality over sheer quantity, and using natural or recycled materials.
Yeah.
They usually claim ethical treatment of people and animals, often backed up by certifications, which consumers should probably look for. Transparency is key. Some even break down their pricing so you see exactly where the money goes.
That's interesting. Price transparency.
Yeah. And they tend to produce smaller collections to avoid that classic fast fashion problem of massive overproduction and unsold stock. And they often rely less on those constant sales cycles.
Okay, so pulling all of this together now, the research on these Polish zero-waste businesses, viewed alongside how sustainable fashion is being promoted online, what are the key takeaways?
Well, it seems clear the business is focused on secondhand sales. They really demonstrate that synthesis of profit and responsibility we talked about earlier. They make money from sales, yes, but they also deliver on environmental goals by keeping clothes out of landfills, and social goals, often by creating local jobs. It's a pretty direct path to that triple bottom line: people, planet, profit.
Right. And the repair sector seems to be doing this successfully too.
Yes, absolutely. By extending the life of products, they divert waste and create skilled jobs. Their profit comes directly from meeting consumer demand for these services. And it seems clear that better online promotion, maybe through networking or just better digital skills, could really amplify the reach and success, especially for those independent tailors and cobblers. Definitely seems like an opportunity there. The rental model, on the other hand, it seems to struggle more financially right now, primarily due to lower consumer demand, despite the clear environmental benefit of shared use.
So the desire just isn't there yet for renting everyday wear.
Apparently not widely.
Yeah.
But innovative approaches like that reusable diaper rental network, Pieluchateka, perhaps by combining rental with options to buy, might offer a kind of blueprint for how rental could become more financially viable. But getting broader consumer acceptance for renting clothes, that still seems to need a lot of education and maybe even a cultural shift.
Yeah, that really echoes other research I've seen that shows consumers generally say they like secondhand and repair options, but acceptance for rental is much lower. And there's still that noticeable gap, isn't there, between people's positive attitudes towards sustainable fashion and their actual purchasing and usage habits, what we say versus what we do.
Absolutely. That attitude-behavior gap is well documented. But ultimately, companies who identify with the zero-waste movement can take these findings from the directory analysis, from the YouTube trends, and use them to build strategies. Strategies that effectively navigate that tricky space between making money and delivering positive social and environmental outcomes. And the research clearly points to online visibility and networking as really crucial tools for growth, especially for those smaller independent businesses.
Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up.
Yeah, I think to summarize, this exploration really shows that secondhand and repair services are, well, leading the charge among the zero-waste fashion businesses looked at in Poland. They're finding ways to blend profit and responsibility pretty effectively. While fashion rental still faces hurdles, some innovative models, like in the diaper space, are emerging and might show a path forward.
It absolutely reinforces that educating consumers and actively promoting these sustainable practices is just essential. Information about the real cost of fast fashion and, crucially, the vibrant alternatives available like repair, like secondhand, is incredibly powerful in driving more conscious choices.
Agreed. And while this study, had its limitations, it focused on specific platforms. One country going back and revisiting this kind of research in the future could give us really invaluable insights into how this crucial sustainable fashion landscape continues to shift and evolve.
Definitely. And that leaves us, and you listening, with something to maybe ponder. Given the clear benefits these sustainable approaches offer and the growing awareness among consumers, how can we as individuals go beyond just trying to vote with our wallets? What more can we perhaps do to actively support these innovator businesses, the repair shops, the upcyclers, the secondhand stores, and truly help accelerate the shift towards a fashion industry that actually works for people and the planet?